It was a long spring day in 2010. I was a student at Howard School of Divinity. And after finishing a night class, this first day of March, I made my way home to catch my two sons before their bedtime. I know it was March 1st, 2010, a Monday. I remember, because I didn't make it home that night. You see, I had forgotten that my tags were expiring at the month's end, and that February was a short month, so me had the same amount of time to procrastinate as usual. I mean, who ain't procrastinate about getting their tags renewed, eh? Especially when you're new to adulting. And as I got about half a mile from my home, them blue lights start flashing, and I am stopped by the police. All right, damn, maybe I'll get a ticket. I might get away with a warning. I mean, it's only a day beyond expiration, right? And moreover, I gotta let y'all know I was in the fullness of my bourgeois sensibilities, right? Like, now I am dreadlocked. Now I got, bushy beard, but I used to keep my beard nice and low. I used to wear my hair low. Man, I was coming home from seminary dressed in a suit, bow tie, suspenders, and an elegant fedora. Oh, I was looking sharp. I'm giving the officer all kinds of reasons to assume I'm just somebody who has procrastinated. Yet, the officers flank my car with their guns drawn. Get out the fucking car! I will, officers, but will you be kind enough to stop pointing your guns at me? My hands 10 and 2. My father was a chief deputy U.S. Marshal. My mother was an attorney general. I know all the protocol. Hands 10 and 2. Wrists on the steering wheel with my palms facing up out. And I'm like, we will once you get out the fucking car. And man ripped me out the car at gunpoint. They handcuffed me, put me on the curb, sit while they dig through my car to perform their illegal search of my car's interior and trunk. And once they find nothing, again, I was coming home from seminary. Once they find nothing, they inform me that my tags are expired. Come on, y'all. My tags are expired. You got flank me with guns and rip me out my car and handcuff me and sit me on the curb and dig through my car, pull out all my shit. So they say my tags were expired and that I was illegally operating a vehicle. So they took me to jail. It was hours before they allowed me to call my then wife, remarried now, well before midnight, before I was able to let her know why I did not arrive home from class. Having been arrested for operating a vehicle illegally, I was denied the opportunity to simply let my family know that I was alive. At 2 a.m., I was released with no papers. No charges were filed, and I was issued a ticket to get my tags renewed, which would vacate once my tags had been renewed. I knew all of this shit because I already know. Again, my father was a chief deputy U.S. Marshal, police commissioner, chief of police. My mother was an attorney general. I know how these things work. I even told the desk sergeant, the black man who was at the desk, I'm like, upon my discharge, I'm like, this was some bullshit, right? Y'all could have given me this from the beginning. And yeah, he gave me one of those looks that he was like, yeah, I know it's fucked up. I took my stuff and walked a few miles from the precinct back to my car, which thankfully they did not impound, and finally made it home. I was held at gunpoint, had my car searched, jailed for hours, denied contact with my family, and released with a warning to then walk miles home because my tags were expired by 1 day. What did I do? I gave thanks to be alive. They had their guns drawn on me. Get out of the fucking car! I gave thanks that it did not go worse than it did. I gave thanks that I did not react with the indignation, rather, that I did not react with the indignation at the indignity of the treatment that I had received by agents of the state whom I pay to protect and serve me. I updated my tags, I put on a new sticker, and I went on my way. Just another day in Black life. I allowed the state to take my dignity like my ancestors on plantations who had no choice but to allow Massa and Massa's agents to have their way with our person. No choice but to allow Massa to have his way with our wives, with their husbands, with our children's. At this point, I imagine you could relate. You can remember the time when you had to suffer an indignity at the hands of those charged to ensure your dignity is not violated. The Amanda said that the Bill of Rights was necessary to protect the personhood of a free people. Yet, as Black people, we have always had to reconcile with the violation of our dignity. We have always had to accept the violation of our dignity, to shuck and jive in one sense or another. That is the root of the problem, an existence that forces us to accept indignities. Everyone should be free to choose when to accept or reject indignity. We, of our own accord, should have the freedom to determine when we think it is best to apply the virtue of humility or the virtue of courage. For when the system has the authority to take that free choice from us and subject us to constant humiliation, what becomes of that people? That people will become a non-people. They would become effectively dehumanized. I mean, not fully dehumanized, but effectively dehumanized. For how can a people be and remain a people if that people no longer has the free will to express itself and its essential being? To be Black in America is to deny your free will and to deny the free will of your children. It means teaching your children to subjugate their own dignity, not because that's their choice, but because Black children need to learn that if they defend their dignity, they will die. Does that describe a people to you? When you think of a free people, what is their dignity? What does dignity mean to a people, a free people, for a free people? I imagine that God would have made some promises to our enslaved ancestors during slavery, during oppression, during Jim Crow, and everything that was going on in the fight for freedom. I imagine that God would have made some promises to our enslaved ancestors to give them hope in the midst of hellaciously wicked times. What do you think? I imagine that in the height of the first era of lynching in America, God would have made some promises of deliverance that fueled the faithful, the ones who sacrificed in and for the civil rights movement. I cannot imagine how we would have overcome such terror and kept hope alive as we have, but for the promises of God. So what does it mean when God fails to come? As we have witnessed throughout 2020 and for the past few years, as we have witnessed since the pandemic up to now, we certainly cannot claim to have come to the place for which our fathers sighed. And so I want us to begin considering the racial dilemma in America through the lens of Jacob's story. Jacob, the child of Isaac, whose brother Esau desired to kill him. Jacob represents us Black Americans. We are the sons and daughters of America who, from the birth of this nation, have been and remained under the threat of violence from them white folks who just call us themselves brothers and sisters. Esau represents our white sisters and brothers. I stumbled upon this understanding when preparing to preach on Jacob as this COVID outbreak had started. I saw Jacob in a dysfunctional family where his brother was consumed by the desire to kill him, and the authorities, his parents, could do and would do not a damn thing to prevent the fratricide. In addition to allowing Esau to seek opportunities to kill Jacob, Isaac, one of the forefathers of the faith, continued to prefer Esau. Although Esau had zero regard for the faith of his father, zero regard for the ways, his father still preferred him over Jacob. Isaac still honored Esau as the firstborn, who was secured in the privilege of the firstborn, that white privilege of this dysfunctional American family. White America continues to harbor a desire to kill black life, still harbors comfort in the systemic killing of black life, and those who stand in the shoes of the founding fathers and mothers of America. The federal government, in its civic trinity of three branches, still prefers Esau over Jacob. America still thinks the hope and future for securing the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity rests in white power and white supremacy. Black power remains subjugated, subordinated to whiteness. Black life remains excluded from the we the people enshrined in the Constitution. Thanks be to God. Black people remain locked out of the blessings of liberty for our posterity in this country. We don't want none of that shit neither. The promises have yet to be fulfilled, and we have yet to determine a deadline for their fulfillment. However, Jacob, the son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham, never rested until them promises were received. He was determined to see them promises of God in his lifetime. Yet we, Israelites in bondage in this Egypt land, we have become reconciled to the idea that it won't happen in our lifetime. Knowing that he was about to be killed, and the night before his assassination, Dr. King proclaimed his mountaintop speech. In it, he said that he may not get there with us, but that we as a people would get to the promised land. He said that as a man who knew he was about to die. He said that, and he talked about this promised land when he had already declared 5 days before that to Harry Belafonte that America, these yet to be United States, was a Sodom and Gomorrah situation that could not be redeemed, and that they had integrated their people, our people, black people, into a burning house, making the mistake. So declaring in that mountaintop speech that this indeed could not be the promised land. But he said that we would get there as a people. Now, we who don't expect and don't want to be assassinated, we just use Dr. King's thematic to justify our acceptance of the gradualism against which Dr. King himself railed in his letter from Birmingham jail. As a result, we have literally agreed to gift this struggle to our children and their children ad infinitum. That is the promise of America for black people and our posterity. The gift of struggle for belonging and mattering. We have embraced the gradualist approach that Dr. King rejected and left religiously begging at the seat of white power for them to take their knees off our necks so that we could breathe. Yet, who is it that made the promises to black people? Who made the promise that black people lives would matter? Who promised to deliver us from slavery and dehumanizing experience of life under white supremacy? Was it Babylon? Or was it Ixyavihir Amlakin, the Lord God Almighty? With whom should our quarrel be? With white America, who ain't make us no promise no way? Should we not wrestle with God, or at least with his body, his representatives on earth, the church, demanding that he bless us now, even if it means we come up with a limp? Where is that spirit that holds to the promises of God? Where is the spirit that demands and expects those promises to be fulfilled, no matter how strongly white power objects? A people, beloved, are those who, as a group, have laid claim to and defend their dignity as beings created in the image of God. Without that spirit, we cannot really consider ourselves to be a people. Without a level of dignity that we refuse to allow to be violated, we cannot be a people. Till we find and establish that line that holds sacred the essential mattering of our blackness in the Imago Dei, we cannot be a people. How do we reclaim our standing as a people? How do we find our dignity in the image of God and defend that holy dignity? How should we look at God's dealings with his people to understand who we are?
While them a play,